Hi. It's
Did you say hi?
yeah. It's a weird thing having to start
Yeah, it is.
because it's like we've been talking this whole day already.
Yeah.
And then I come in, it's like we have to pretend like we haven't talked
Yeah,
yet.
hey,
but-
nice to meet you. You walked in the door 2 seconds ago.
yeah.
If you did that, though, I'd be like, hey, buddy. Right?
Yeah, that's good.
Be
So-
festive, carnival-like atmosphere.
Carnival.
Mhm.
Carnival-like atmosphere.
Yep.
Did you ever go to
Awesome.
carnivals when you were a kid?
Kissed my first girl at a carnival.
Did you?
Yep.
With teacups?
What the hell is that?
The teacup ride?
No, my buddy I played hockey with in minor Bantam.
You kissed a dude?
No. Oh, no. Oh. That's not supposed to be funny anymore,
Yeah,
eh?
Whatever.
Yeah. No, so this girl, I don't know if this is going to be appropriate. So this girl at school, I guess she's, she was not her first date.
Had the hots for you.
Yeah, we went to the carnival. Is that what they're called? Like, so you got the
Festival,
teacups, yeah,
carnival,
all that
whatever.
stuff. So I met her there, nervous as hell, with my buddy that I played hockey with. So when we were leaving, his dad, my teammate's dad, was picking us up, and he was like that far away in his car, and a beauty guy, eh? Right from the Donovan in Sudbury, so
Yeah.
seen it all. And so she comes up to me and to smooch me, and holy, I almost bit her tongue right off. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I was like,
Oh my god.
I almost bit her freaking head right off. So he had a
Which-
comment or two.
Which
Huh?
carnival was it?
Just in Sudbury, some
The Sudbury Carnival?
yeah, like 8 rides and every hick that was there, that
Yeah,
could
yeah, yeah.
possibly be there. And
Some of those
Yeah.
rides are sketchy.
back then, that's when the style was like this was summer, summertime, so it wasn't the same. But in the
Bell
winter
bottoms.
times, no, not bell bottoms. That's the 60s or 70s.
Oh, okay.
Had them when I was a little kid.
Sorry, I forgot
But
how old you are.
every dude in school, everywhere you went, wore jeans, cougar boots. I don't know what the shirts. Probably a t-shirt's the best, and a flannel, red, white, and black flannel
Really?
coat. That's the look with long hair.
Really?
Everybody.
What are cougar boots?
They look like work boots, but they're not work boots. They're like whatever. They're horrible. But I had because we didn't have a lot of money. I had the knockoffs. So
course.
everybody knew. But then the boots had to have your tongue hanging out, and then you had a red tongue that hung out, and you're the cool dude then.
Oh yeah, I got you.
So it was the summertime, so I don't know what I wore, but you're kind of throwing style out there.
Yeah. I love hearing those old stories. Like my dad's got the
Yeah.
best because he had the off the boat parents from Italy. So
Oh yeah.
my dad always got hand me downs.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have like a ton of money either, or
Yeah.
whatever. But he always got hand me downs, but the hand me downs he got were from his sisters because they were older.
Do you ever wear a dress?
No. He said two of my favorites. I don't think you'd care if I told the story. He said two of my favorites were he got one of his sister's winter coats. And it was
Yeah.
like more of a puffy marshmallow kind, I think.
Yeah, nice.
And he was saying it was so obviously
girl.
a woman's, so he would wear it inside out to hide
Poor kid.
some of the stitching. That was
Yeah.
one. Second
Yeah.
one was bell-bottom jeans were starting to be cool or
Yeah.
whatever. Or they were cool. So he wanted bell-bottoms. So his mom would cut the corner of his jeans because she was like good at like a seamstress or whatever you called. And she put pink inserts to make them flare. So he'd have like these
Wow.
pink triangle inserts.
Wow.
to make
I
his-
can go on this fashion thing for a long
Oh
time.
yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you can.
Long. So I remember being in, so probably 10, 11. And remember, I think I've said this before, that I had a neighbor that played for the Sudbury Wolves.
Mhm.
And I went for a run with him.
Yeah,
And
tell me.
it got me actually, and Rocky came out and all that stuff. So it got me like I wanted to work out a little bit. So I was going through the Sears catalog one day, and I was stuck on this page.
Oh, you've told me this
Yeah,
story.
stuck on this page, man. And my mom was like, she wants to be a good mom and stuff, right? And,
Yeah.
and money was tight. Like, I
Yeah.
get it. I played hockey. That's all I cared about. And so money was tight. And she saw that I was on this thing, and you need some clothes as a kid. The Sears catalog, right? You
Some
need
clothes.
Yeah. So she saw me. She goes, "What are you looking at?" So I said, "Oh, it was like the Rocky." Remember we was working on. He had the hoodie. It was a gray. It was like the steel gray,
Gray on gray.
gray on gray, but it was like not that bright gray. It was like.
Yep.
And I said, "Oh, I was just looking at this." She goes, "Oh, would you like something like that?" And then I think she just ordered. She said, "I ordered you a tracksuit for you, like workout stuff." I'm like so excited. And which seemed like probably 2 months before it came in was probably a week,
Yeah.
right? When you're a kid, you know you're getting something. I was so excited. So it comes in one day. I open it up, and it wasn't the same one. So it didn't have the hood. It didn't have the gray. It didn't have the zip. It was like a sweatshirt that you pull over, and it had like a baby blue stripe right down
Oh,
the side
man.
and on the pants, and it was tight. So I was like, you can't say that's not what I wanted. Like, mom,
Right.
like, I was like, oh, thanks, and it was like, oh, right
Yeah.
to the heart, nah, right to the heart.
Brutal.
And then, can I go one more?
Yeah, one more.
So I get drafted. We have our first press conference. This is so bad. So, first press conference. So it's at the Italian club in Sudbury. All the teams come in. So when I arrived, like the boys were just laughing. So I didn't know. Like my dad had a suit. So I went into his closet and I grabbed a suit. My dad's about 106 pounds. So I was like a thicker, not like a lot bigger, and in shape and stuff, right? So I put on this suit and it was black pants, but it was not velour, but it was like a really weird material with not bell bottoms, but pretty much. Put on his jacket and it was tight. And then anyways, the tie that I put on was about this wide and the knot was the size of my head. And it matched, but it didn't. So I walked into the room. You could hear with the legs rubbing, eh? And I walk in, and the boys goes, "Come on!" And I'm like, "What?" I thought I was looking good, but it was like, wow, the boys I couldn't live it down.
Oh my
Hilarious,
god, that
man.
is awesome.
I could go forever on this stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't have many similar stories because my mom made sure I was a well-dressed boy.
Yeah.
Had matching clothes. I remember I won. I got the best dressed award in high school.
Like a daily going to school, best dressed?
Like no, so we wore uniforms, but
Oh.
we would have dress down days.
Yeah.
So on the dress down days were more of a big deal because you got to wear regular clothes.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like everybody want to make sure they're looking pretty good.
Yeah.
Whatever. Mostly kids, anyways. But I didn't care about clothes. But
Yeah.
my mom just bought me nice clothes
Right.
that matched and like
Right.
went well together and all this stuff. I didn't know what to buy. I didn't do it. And I didn't really care either. So I would just wear stuff my mom bought and it would match and it would be fine. And I remember we had a school assembly end of the year. I was probably grade 10 or something. And they freaking called my name for best dressed. You don't know how humiliated
I was
I
going to
was?
say you didn't like it.
Oh my God. Because we wear uniforms.
Yeah.
So I was like, how am I winning this anyway?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
on the few times I was wearing normal clothes, someone appreciated it and voted for me for best dressed in the school.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
horrified. So then
Yeah.
I started to reevaluate my clothing decisions
Yeah.
after that. Like, am I standing out too much? Like,
Yeah.
am I?
I was just going to say you're standing out.
Yeah,
You're sticking
right.
out like a
So
sore thumb.
I never thought of it before
Yeah.
that. It was just like we had clothes that matched and looked good, and I knew
Yeah.
that the clothes were nice and looked good. That was because my mom. It wasn't because I like spent all this time putting my outfits together or anything like
Yeah.
that.
But nowadays you can go like, okay, so there's a big difference between how kids dressed when like in the 70s and 80s. I mean, I know for people listening, for some of you guys, you're gonna think this is ancient,
Yeah.
but like 70s, 80s, it's actually not that long ago. Maybe it is. If you didn't have like the good quality clothing because it was a little more expensive, then you looked like it was so obvious. It was so obvious.
Yeah.
We didn't have like an Old Navy
Right.
where you can get a pair of jeans and t-shirt and stuff and slide by. It was like you either dressed in style or you were way out.
Right.
So like I said, those Cougar boots, well, I had the knockoffs, so it was like they're so obvious. Like
Right.
if you had Sparks running shoes, which I had, it was like they were so white and they
Yeah.
were so bad, and,
Yeah.
you were like like a loser kid.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
people
yeah.
would make fun of you for the clothes you wear, right? And there was tough skin pants. You ever hear of those? No, those ones stuck out like a sore thumb. I didn't have those. I think I would not wear them. Some kids would wear the tough skins, but it was so obvious who could afford nice clothes and stuff, and people would make fun of you.
Yeah, it's not
So
like
different.
that now.
Like
though.
now it's like you can get by. In fact, if you're smart, not if you're smart, but if like as parents, like my wife always found like really good deals at Abercrombie and Finch or
Yeah.
whatever, those Gaps and all those
Yeah.
things. And the price of those, if you could find the right things, you buy tons of stuff for like way less than you could at a normal store.
Dude, thrifting is trendy now. Like
Yeah.
buying clothes from the thrift. My brother does it all the time.
Really?
He goes, and my brother dresses like super trendy. And this was the other thing we just were talking about this like last week with my mom and my Christine, because for me, I don't ever want to dress where people look at me and think, wow, like that's a really styling outfit. Like I want to look good. It's nice for people to think that I look good and all that. That's great. But I want it to be simple. I want it to be like nice pair of pants, nice shirt, plain, no logos, not a lot of patterns, not a lot of sticking out stuff, and just like look clean and professional. That's fine.
If it's out of style in 5 years, it's not gonna be that out of style.
Yeah, but people now like dressing trendy and wearing like the looks cool in a magazine outfit. It's like I have zero interest in doing it. It makes me uncomfortable actually. Like when I'm wearing something that I know is more trendy. Like the one thing that I have a hard time with is people like to cuff the pants at the bottom now. And sometimes I do it because it's in style, but I never like doing it because it's like I don't like wearing this. Like I feel uncomfortable. Like that's not how I am. I don't. That's not how I dress. But people are big into the trends now. Like we're dressing the trendy, like baggy fit stuff, or like the high rise pants, or the loose jeans are coming back in now, or whatever. It's like, but it's way more. There's not like a set style really. Even there's so much like.
What I like now is like I always said I'm not going to wear Lululemon, because I don't like the name and it's like everybody wears it. But then I went and bought 2 pairs of pants because for the price and for the value, and they can mix with anything and they fit good and they're comfortable. It's like, that's a pretty good deal. Yeah. I mean, you could dress that up pretty good, or you could dress it down pretty good. It's like, so there's a lot of options out there now for kids. You don't have to look like a dork anymore.
Yeah, seriously. Well, there's a different start, eh? You're talking about our fashion sense for the first 10 minutes of the podcast. I like that.
And then basically this is what we wear anyways.
Well, that's why I always
t-shirts and jeans in the summer and winter. That's it.
That's why I feel uncomfortable most of the time, because I'm mostly wearing gym clothes, you know. And then we have to go somewhere nice, and it's like out of my comfort zone.
Now when I do, like, it's like every 4 or 5 years I have to put on a sort of kind of like a suit, and it's like I feel like a fart in church, man. It's so uncomfortable, so uncomfortable. I just can't stand it.
I see. I don't mind. I like dressing up. I like putting on nice clothes, but not flashy clothes. Like I don't want to look flashy in any way. I like wearing nice clothes though. That's the Italian in me coming out. But anyhow, I digress. So we can go to our topic. I want to talk about one more thing before we do that though. I've been coming across, so I'm trying to do this thing we talked about it last week, where I'm speaking more in my posts, particularly on TikTok. I'm trying to do some more where I'm actually addressing like questions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I've been going through like some of these people are asking questions or making comments and about training stuff in particular. And there's this weird thing about social media. We've talked about this before, about doing the fancy stuff and like making things look as cool as you can make it look and whatever. So I'm against that. I had this conversation again the other day. We were talking about social media stuff and how everything is like pretend on social media, or the highlights are like whatever. And I was thinking, like, when it comes to training, I have like a very strong stance against promoting bullshit training things just for views. Yeah. So I understand the marketing thing, and like you want to have some clickbaity stuff so people click on all that. I get all that from like the business side of it. But there's some people that post things that are just, there's no way that they do this in their training program, or there's no way that they actually practice this on the ice, or there's no way that this is something you could use for the thing you're trying to be good at. We talk about it with skill stuff all the time and doing things that are game transferable, not 15 versions of the Michigan and all this stuff, but particularly with off-ice training, like exercise selection and what you're doing in your workouts. Some of the stuff I see from like people that are like legit professionals too. Yeah. I look at it and I'm like, there's no way that you're having your top guys do this move.
Yeah, we saw some with the combos. We're like, what
the hell, I'm like, it's, you know, like jump on one leg, spin around into a box jump, and then land in the push-up. It's like, I don't know, what is this? Yeah. So just, I wanted to point this out for kids in particular, and for parents too, because a lot of parents don't know either. When you're watching things on social media, the things that, in terms of off-ice training, and on-ice training too, but in terms of off-ice especially, if you're trying to get a certain result, like, just keep it simple, man. Like, the simple things are what work. Like, if you need to get stronger, do compound lifts. If you need to get faster, do some sprints. If you don't have to do like the crazy box jump, plyometric, high knee, spin jump. Like, you don't have to do any of this stuff. It's just unnecessary. And I want to get your thoughts on this part, because I find a lot of people for off-ice training, they try to recreate on the ice, off the ice. So like people talk about sport specific training and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And somebody was talking to me the other day. They commented that you should never do a 400-meter run as a hockey player because it's not a hockey move. And
Well,
I'm like the only hockey move is
neither is
when,
eating.
yeah, like when you have your skates and your equipment and your stick and you're on the ice, that's hockey move.
Yeah.
Anything else is not a hockey move.
Right.
Because you can't perfectly recreate the mechanics off the ice. So my philosophy, at least with training, and you could give me your thoughts on this, is like you're trying to do things you can't do on the ice, off the ice. That's the point of the off ice. Do your on the ice, on the ice.
Yep.
Like I
agree.
I'm in favor of, you're trying to recreate similar movement patterns and stuff. All that's fine, but to a degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is neat because I've said this before. There's always a method of the month, and I've lived a lot longer than you, so I've seen more methods and more months.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. For sure.
So like there's always the terminology. Like for a while, it was always core, work your core, work your core. Like what exactly is working your core, right? So people that don't really understand that, they think it's your stomach or your trunk and stuff. Like it's kind of your knees to your chest.
Bottom of your chest. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's being strong. Well, yeah, it makes sense. And so they got to the point where it's like, and you shouldn't be heavy or strong up top. Well, it doesn't make sense. Like if you just think about doesn't make sense. Like it has to make sense. And then there's there's so many things, right? Like it was Olympic lifting before, and it's still a staple for a lot. But then a lot of people, you should never Olympic lift. It's like I know some people that got real strong and it's really good for them. It's like really good. It helps you with quickness and speed, power, everything, right? Like their core lifts. So that's, someone could argue that, okay, whatever. But like a real one that sticks out to me as you were talking about that is when I was in in the 2000s, early 2000s and late 1900s, late
90s.
90s, yeah. And early 2000s, you were seeing a lot of this is functional movement, right? What does functional mean? What does functional mean?
Yeah.
If you're not doing something that is functional, then it's dysfunctional. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So, but what was really getting popular is that's when the Bosu balls came out,
yeah,
and the Swiss balls came out. So, is there a place for them? Yeah, but people were doing squats on Bosu balls. So, for me, and I was not new to the game, like as far as training goes, but I was not really experienced either. I had the ability to look at that and go, okay, that's dumb, but maybe it's not. But that just seems really dumb to be standing on a ball that can burst with weight on your shoulders. What are we trying to do here?
Yeah.
Right? Well, it help you stabilize. It's like, okay, like maybe, but are we kind of not keeping the main thing anymore? What are we doing? We're squatting on a Bosu ball. So if you're on a Bosu ball, how much weight can you actually put on on your back or front squat or whatever? And so you're eliminating the main thing. The most important thing is you're trying to have strength and you're compensating it with being off balance a little bit, unstable. What to me that's unfunctional, dysfunctional, and it didn't make sense. And there's people that got injured, but some people got good at it. And, there was the pictures of and it was you'd sell, like it was a new thing, right? You'd sell,
right?
And it was the same thing with bands and stuff like that when they came out. It's like, okay, like I questioned it at first. I questioned what are the bands for? Like, why do you need a band and all that kind of stuff? And then when you actually look into it, you can say, okay, there's benefits to it. But there's all kinds of different workout schemes that come out that if it looks weird, like that's what I say to a hockey player. If you're doing a movement and it feels right, it's right. If it feels like it's smooth like butter, everything, your body's not feeling weird about it, it's right. But the second that something's even a little bit off, like you feel like you have to work to make this movement, it's like there's something wrong about it. So you need to fix it. So I would say that with the working out is, look at things. Don't get sold on all the like you said, the fancy stuff. Like, like you said, you showed me one, there's like it was a box jump, landing on one foot, spinning around, jumping to another one, a hop here, a push up, and then come on, man.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's fine if you want to have some fun for a little bit, but to say that's your staple, no, it's not.
Right. And this is the problem with the social media stuff is because it's promoted like this is what I do. Like I see this one guy, he posts videos about, do you want to get a better shot? and he's showing like weightlifting moves to get a better shot.
I
It's
saw
like,
it.
go shoot a puck, man.
Yeah.
Like, you want to get a better shot? Go
Yeah.
shoot some
Or
pucks,
put
man.
your
Do some grip strength.
Put your hand in a bucket of rice and
Yeah, right?
squeeze and do some grip strength stuff. And
exactly. Like, so if you're telling me that you take your clients and you have them as elite hockey players do that move, I'm calling bullshit for sure.
And I think I would I would too as a player. I'd say that doesn't even make sense to me. I might try it to see where but one of those things is you're looking for it to be good.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
If you're doing like I think they had maybe a pulley system, right? And it's twisting and torquing with a pulley system or a weight.
Mhm.
To a small degree, there might be something to it.
Yeah, that's
A
fine.
very, very small degree, but your bang for your buck will be either shooting pucks or doing some grip strength or getting good core strength,
Right.
or torquing, right? You can take a medicine ball and fire it against a wall and torquing, but that's not going to equal a good shot.
Yeah, and there's no. I'm not saying there's no movements you can do that will help you with whatever the skill is. Like there are.
Yeah.
But why are you in the gym?
Yeah.
Like, this is what the question is.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I'm gonna go work out in the gym for an hour today to improve my shot. It's like, no,
Right. Yeah.
that's not why you're going in the gym. Why would you spend an hour? Like, what a bad bang for your buck.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Go shoot pucks and
Yeah.
work on your grip strength if you want that.
Yeah.
Work on the hip torque. That's fine. But do in your environment, train in your environment for those skills.
Yeah.
Don't get sucked into like the bullshit movements that aren't actually real and don't actually work because you saw someone who has a reputation on social media show you that
Yeah.
that's what you need to be doing. It's like, that's not what you need to be doing.
Not
If you
at all.
want to get strong, very basic framework. If you want to get strong, do compound lifts. Very
Yeah.
easy, right? Start like bare bones. You can do more, but as a base for you.
Yeah.
Squat, deadlift, push, pull, right? Squat, hinge, push, pull,
Carry.
Okay? There's your strength if you want to do strength. If you're trying to do an aerobic thing, then you could just go on a bike. You can go for a run. You can do whatever. That's fine. You need to work on speed. You can do basic plyos like box jumps, lunge jumps, stuff like that. Hurdle jumps, high knees, stuff like that, or
Yeah.
sprints, short area sprints. That's it. Like, you don't have to do, this is the other thing. You don't need to do any of the other stuff. If you can do it, that's fine. But to your point, like you said, you're distracting from the main thing. Like, if you're so busy trying to remember the sequence of moves
Yeah.
to complete the exercise,
Yeah.
it's like you can't actually focus on what you're doing. If you're
Yeah.
trying to get strong and somebody says, well, do it on this Bosu ball because that will help with your stability. It's like, well, yeah, but I'm trying to be strong. So if I can't maximize the weight that I have on my back or in the front rack or that I'm holding, then I'm not working on my maximum strength.
That's
And
right.
what I'm trying to do is get stronger.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you're not trying to work on your stability.
Yeah.
You're not trying to work on whatever,
That's right.
and it's not about, you can never work the same movement pattern. I'm not saying do, stuff that isn't necessarily aligned with your sport. That's not what I'm saying, but you can just keep things simple. It doesn't have to be really complicated. There's no secret. There's no secret,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just find that people with hockey, I'm sure it's with all sports, but with hockey, it's like you're trying so hard to recreate your on ice movements off the ice that you're distracting from what you're trying to do off the ice in the
Yeah.
first place. If assuming you're skating all summer, like, use the ice to work on your on ice stuff.
For sure.
Work on your skating, work on your mechanics,
For
work
sure.
on your speed, work on all that in your environment on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
When you're off the ice, use that time to the best of your ability to work on the thing you need to work on.
Yeah.
And if it's getting stronger, if it's getting faster, if it's whatever your thing is, your aerobic fitness, whatever you need, there are very simple methods that you can use to do that. You don't need fancy moves. You don't need fancy stuff. You don't need something that's going to take, 5 workouts to figure out how to do the sequence in the first place.
Yeah.
Just basic stuff, especially when you're just starting out, especially early
Yeah.
on. Just basics. You don't need anything
Well, it's
that's
the same
crazy.
as on the ice. I laugh sometimes. Like, those videos will pop
Oh
up
my
and
God,
stuff. And I
dude,
go,
it's crazy.
okay, like if the sell factor. Well, I don't know who actually gets sold on it, but I see a sequence of a stick handle, a spin. I don't know,
Flip
all
the
these
puck,
different
yeah.
things in all these different places. I couldn't even follow that, and I don't understand why you would.
Mhm.
Keep it a lot simple, a lot simpler.
I know. Well, it's you were talking about this with the in the episode we did on like the stick handling stuff. It doesn't sell, right?
Right.
When you tell people you don't need that, you don't need that. You just need to do the simple
Yeah.
thing. You just need to do the simple thing.
Yeah.
People are looking for the secret answer.
Yeah.
They're looking for the secret thing that they need to do that,
Yeah.
so when someone says, do you want a better shot? Grab this kettlebell and do this, blah, blah. It's like,
Yeah.
or you could just shoot in the driveway,
Yeah,
you know?
like life's simple.
It's not, it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be that complicated, you know?
No.
And then just on the flip side of that is there's also a nuance to the conversation sometimes of what is good and what's not good. So like to the point of the guy talking about the 400-meter run, like you shouldn't do a 400-meter run. It's like,
Well, sure you can.
what do you mean?
But you probably shouldn't every day.
Yeah. Or you shouldn't sprint it 5 times in a row.
Right.
But like,
Yeah.
there's a context. Someone else told me that you
Yeah.
should never deadlift. I'm like, you should never deadlift. I'm like, what are you talking about? You should never deadlift. You know?
Yeah, the thing is that if you learn those lifts properly, and that's the key, is you learn how to do things
course,
properly,
yeah.
then it's fine. But I can certainly understand someone that is leery of it.
For sure.
Yeah, like because I sometimes am. Sometimes when I see someone that doesn't have proper posture, they're trying to
Well, that-
outmuscle
yeah,
themselves,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
like, no, eventually you are going to hurt yourself. You're going to tweak something. But if you have good posture and you don't try to set records here,
Right.
but incrementally get better and have like number one is form, right?
Right.
And if you do it properly, then and I have no problem with deadlifts, but I can see where people get leery of that a little bit. But again, it's got to be done right.
But yeah, I think it's more people they get leery of it, but they don't actually understand the movement. It's
Right.
like,
Well, and it's like people, the other thing is that people hear what other people hear. It's like, this is my famous one that I always use to people, is like when parents come in years ago and they'd say, well, I heard you shouldn't lift weights until you're 14 because you can stunt your growth. Well, so let's put that in context.
Right.
Okay. How are you going to stunt your growth? So the reality of it is you could, if you were to, not will, could if you break a growth plate.
Right.
Because everything else with working out, it enhances muscle growth and bone density and everything. So you could, but then how do you break a growth plate? Well, you'd have to do it by smacking it or
you gotta
whatever.
hurt yourself. Yeah.
You have to hurt yourself. So you can do that walking, riding your bike, falling, playing hockey, playing baseball, whatever. Lifting weights is probably the smallest area that you're ever going to hurt yourself. Like stunning your growth. So the point of me saying like breaking your growth plate, that's someone told you and you didn't take any context to it. You said, okay, so lifting weights until you're 14 is dangerous. Well, then why 14? Well, what if you're an early bloomer? What if you're a late bloomer? That changes the number, doesn't it?
Right.
Right. So people take information, no context, and they apply it to everything. So if we use that concept of things, then you should never ride a skateboard. You should never go rollerblading. You should never play another sport. You should never go water skiing. You should never, I don't know, whatever else. Like, right? So that's not true. So of course you can run a 400 meter. It's a great test for you to see if you can, if you're properly warmed up and you've done all your things. Is it your number one movement? No, but you want to test if you can. That's good for your lung capacity, your lactic acid, all that kind of work. It could be good.
Right.
I don't suggest running 400 meters every day, but. And that's like the when people say you should never go for a long run. Why? Why never? Why never? How's it going to hurt you?
Yeah.
If you're a hockey player and you want to go for a 5-mile run every day, that's probably not the best. It's a little bit harder on your body, and you're training like a marathon runner. Yeah. So time and a place. There's really never is not a good answer.
Right.
And that's my thought on that. They're just. It's very, and the other thing is, it's even watching a hockey player, right? It's so easy to be critical, to say, well, he could have done this, he could have done this, he could have done this, could have this. Well, what is he doing right? Right? So the same with the workouts. Well, you shouldn't do that. It's easy to be the negative guy. Yeah. Give me something though.
Right.
And so, yeah, you can sit there and say you should never do a 400 meter. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. And that was the same thing I was thinking with the deadlift, like exercises and movement that you do in the gym. These are tools. And tools are used for certain jobs. It's used for a certain purpose, and you can use all the tools. Yeah. So the thing that I found with the deadlift too, it's like you never deadlift. Okay, well, does that mean you should never hip hinge? Is that what you mean? Or just the barbell deadlift?
That's right. Should never pick anything up off the ground.
Yeah. Right. So it's just very context dependent, and there needs to be reasons for why you're saying you're going to do something or not.
Yeah.
And all this stuff, it needs context. But the bottom line for me is, you need to have a focus. And then keep it simple within what the focus is. You don't have to do things that are crazy because you're going to get your complex training on the ice. Assuming you're skating throughout the summer and you're training throughout the summer, that's where you're getting your hockey specific, the environment,
Yeah.
So you can try to recreate things off the ice, all that's fine, but it should be simple. It shouldn't be
Yeah.
anything that's so crazy where you need all this fancy stuff or fancy moves, or it takes all this crazy coordination and memorization to do the sequence. It's just not necessary. So
No, it's not
that's
necessary.
all. That's all I wanted to bitch about on that point.
Yeah.
This kind of leads into the topic today, unless you had anything else you wanted to say.
No, I'm good. I
Yeah.
could go a long time on this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But
So I wanted to talk today with that kind of in mind is talk about how to plan the off season.
Yep.
So most of the guys are wrapping up their seasons, or they will be in a couple weeks. I know we got Seabass and Charlie are back. A couple guys are finishing their last series this week, whatever. So I want to give a frame for people today about just different types of things to consider going through the off season, and kind of how to have a plan. And this was something for me that I never did. Again, I knew I had to do certain things through the off season, but I didn't really have a focus or a goal or any method of tracking what I was doing or gauging if I was improving or any of that stuff. So I kind of want to outline like kind of general, and then we can get into some specifics after. If you want, I don't know if you want to say anything about that before I get going on these, or
well, this is what I'll say. There's two different levels of players so not everything's going to be the same for everybody. Like, for example, if you play in the NHL or you play in the OHL or you play college, your season's actually done. So Charlie came home 2 days ago. His season's done. So I know he knows that really he's got till the end of August to get back into it. Okay. So we can actually plan it out, which it already is. So the break for him is the next couple weeks. He's going to do not a lot. He just finished playoffs. He's had he's been skating for 2 years basically. Well, almost 2 years, because is that going into your draft and all that stuff. It's just nonstop and working out really hard. And I would suggest that he actually does a little bit less, but it's going to be almost impossible to keep him out of here and keep him off a little bit of doing the ice. But it's very important that we dial it down. Okay, so we're going to say at least 2 weeks. All right. So those guys, that type of player, no problem. You can plan that out. The other type of player is the youth hockey player. So as you get younger, you could probably get away with not resetting. It's not as important as once you get to those higher levels. But at the same time, it's actually important to reset. So it's not a never and always thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for example, the kids that are 1 year younger than Charlie or 2 years younger than Charlie, which would be 15, 16-year-old kids, they're trying out, like, the season ends in youth hockey. I don't understand this because it's so backwards. The season ends when it ends. So let's say it's May 1st, April, May, right? And then what happens is there's tryouts and there's all this other stuff that they have to be ready for. And the 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds are getting ready for like junior camps to try out. And they have their camps early in the spring. So it's like there is no reset. It's actually too late. Like, it's not an optimal reset, because when they're done all these camps, it's almost June. So they in reality, they only have about 2 months maybe to get everything back together. So that's the first thing I would say, is like, you're at different levels. So everything we say has to be balanced out a little bit on depending on what age you are. Yeah. And then the other thing that we have to do is, for the players, is actually look at it and because here's the problem is, when you get back, when your season's done, you're going to either be real happy or you're going to think that you could have done more, or you need to get better at something. So it's easy. It's almost like you get motivated when you're not in the muck, right? Yeah. It's easy to get motivated when you're not actually doing something. But when you're having a bad day, it's a little bit tougher to get motivated, right? So when you get back and you're actually not grinding it out because you don't have any games for 2 months, then your mind can go, okay, I'm just going to get back in shape. I'm going to do this. And it's very, very easy to not take at least 2 weeks to eat, to go and get your mind off of hockey, get your mind off of training and reset. That's very, very hard for people. And that's not a bad thing, but that's why it is important to take that little bit of time and just forget about hockey, no matter how hard it is. Yep. And if I was going to say anything about it, like, it might be a time, but I don't want you to get anxious about it. I want you to, as a player, I would like to see you just sit back and say, okay, what did I do well?
Mm,
Right? Did I enjoy it? Did I have fun? All that kind of stuff, and look back and say, okay, and start looking for. But what did I do well? What can I get better on? Maybe if you have goals like reasonable goals that you can set or whatever, okay, great. And what do I need to do for the summer? Okay, great. When do I actually want to start? And your start date needs to be pushed out a little bit, not start right away, because you really do need to decompress a
yeah.
little bit.
So that's a really good point. I didn't even actually write that down, but yeah, there will be a difference between based on the level that you're at, obviously.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do kind of just like a little bit more of a mental framework
Yeah.
kind
You
of
go.
thing.
Yeah.
And then you kind of touched on a lot of things I'm gonna go into, and then we can kind of go back. But I'm probably gonna not remember to make the distinction between uh someone who's a junior player versus someone who's younger. So if
Yeah.
you want to point that difference out
Sure.
while I'm going. So the first thing, I kind of have 4 steps basically to planning your
Yeah.
off season. So the first one is that you need to have a plan. That's number 1, is to make the plan. So
Very important.
so all of this stuff, in order to plan your off season, it actually takes sitting down and making the plan part. It's not just on the fly as you go do it. It's like, no, sit and actually map out a plan. Like this is step 1. So to your point that you were talking about at the end, first thing you want to do, well, I'll say the 4 and then we'll go back to them. So have a plan, number 1. That's it. Number 2 is, in that plan, you need to be planning everything from what you want to do on the ice, what you want to do off the ice, what you're going to do in terms of training and recovery, those types of things, and have actual goals goals or something you're aiming towards in each of those areas.
Sure.
So you want your plan, you need to touch all those different areas in your plan. That's number 2.
Yeah.
Third one is going to be to set some benchmarks and have a way of tracking what your plan is. That would be step the third thing, right? So you need to have your plan, you have each kind of the division inside your plan of what you need to be working on, what you're aiming at, and then you need to have a way to track that, or a benchmark. So if it's, you want to improve your sprinting time because that will make you feel like you're getting faster, that's a good one. How are you going to track your food? How are you going to track that you're getting your sleep properly? What are ways that you can measure some of this stuff? Doesn't have to be everything, doesn't have to be to a T, but just having an idea of some way to measure that you're making progress. So you're not just like guessing with whether or not you're getting better. And then the last one is going to be the ability to tweak or make adjustments as your plan progresses. Because oftentimes your plan never goes according to plan, and you need to be able to make adjustments on the way. So if you're a month in and something isn't working the way you thought, you need to have the ability to make an adjustment to better suit what your schedule is, or what your day is like, or maybe you didn't realize how much school was going to be in the way, or whatever the case is. Maybe you get a job and that changes things. So you need to be able to make adjustments to that.
Parents drag you to the cottage for 2 weeks.
That's it, right? So those are kind of like the 4 things that I would say you need to, kind of the 4 more or less steps that you need to follow to get yourself set for the off season and through the off season. So the first one, for having a plan. So you mentioned this before. It's very important that you kind of reflect on what happened to this point, because in order to make a plan going forward, you need to have something to improve, and you need to be able to identify what you need to improve. So that means you have to reflect on what happened to get you to where you are now, good or bad, whatever it is. So this is where things, I was just asking this morning about exit interviews with the coaches. Like, what kind of feedback did you get from your coaches? What kind of pointers did they give you on where they see you need to improve? What did you think about your year? And being able to sit down and actually think and maybe even write it out, what happened and what you feel like you need to improve on. That's probably like the step number 1 that you need to do before you get into the off season. I don't know if you want to throw anything in there.
No, that's good. I mean, it is what it is. You look at your game and say, you know what, I for Charlie this year, okay, for example, he's a young kid going in the OHL, very, very young. And he felt like he was getting like pretty good speed. And that's one area that he said, okay, I got better because you're just forced to. So it got better, but he knows, okay, I just want to continue on that. So that's something that in the workouts, on the ice and stuff, it's a hard focus. He went in there pretty strong, and he said, you know, like every kid says, you know, I got to make sure I'm stronger and faster, but I got to make sure I'm strong because guys are bigger. So he went in there and he said, okay, I was actually strong. I was actually very strong. So like in his plan, he might not have to spend quite as much time into like getting stronger because he is very strong. So maybe looking at his plan, he goes, if I can maintain that or increase it a little bit, but if I can put a little bit more into explosiveness, that might be a good thing for me, right? So he's able to take a look at that. And that's what you want. That's what you need to do.
Yeah. So that's, and that goes for whatever you're doing, on ice, off ice, whatever. So that goes right into the second thing, and you can start to talk more about the on ice stuff. But this is the four categories I would say that you need to plan is on ice stuff, off ice stuff, training stuff, or sorry, nutrition stuff, and recovery stuff.
For sure.
So on ice, off ice, nutrition, recovery. So those are kind of the four buckets.
And the one thing that it would be an offshoot, and it's very hard for younger kids to do it, is do something mental.
Right. Yeah.
Learn how to use your brain, and whether that's watching some video, which it's harder in the summer, but if you're watching some video, or that's a mental thing.
Yeah.
But if you're actually maybe working on something to make your mind stronger.
Yeah, I think for me, that kind of, it's not exactly recovery. So I think, yeah, maybe a fifth category would be more like the mental stuff. But
Yeah.
I would kind of put that in when you're doing your recovery time. Like this is where you're doing some of that mental stuff. So in terms of on the ice, I'll let you go on this one first. So when you're trying to figure out what you need to improve on the ice, if you want to just talk about mentally, how are you going to come up with what you need to work on the ice, and then how do you come up with like kind of a plan for yourself for training on the ice?
Yeah, well, like I don't know if this isn't gonna answer it for everybody, but the bottom line is you got to look at what your weaknesses are. Like identify your strengths. Okay, I shoot a puck real good. Good. Doesn't mean don't shoot pucks. Continue to do that, but you got to find what are your weaknesses, or what do you need to work on. So when you're jumping on the ice in the summertime, if you're going to a shooting camp and you got the best shot and you're avoiding the skating that you need to do, which a lot of people will do, then that's not a great plan. So you have to, like, number one, identify your weaknesses. So like let's just use skating for example. Skating, which everyone probably could do some, doesn't mean that you're getting bag skated. In fact, that'd be probably the worst thing you could do in the summer,
Man,
the beginning of the summer.
Just put a freaking exclamation point on that, please. Just, it does not mean you have to bag skate and do everything as fast as possible.
That's
that
right.
doesn't mean that you're working on skating.
That's
Just
right.
wanted to punch that
Yeah.
one. So
Yeah,
continue.
no. So it could be doing more technical stuff, and this is where this is where you do have to want to make sure that you're fresh, because you're going to use a lot of brain power with this. So the mechanics of skating, and then kind of figuring out your body and your system, and making those changes so it becomes natural. So and then you incorporate it as the summer goes on. So playing games and doing battle drills in May, June is probably not your best option.
Right.
Well, no, it's not your best option. Right? It's taking care of the things that you need to take care of, that what I would consider your weaknesses would be your foundation for the summertime. So again, your summertime, your early summer, late spring, early summer training should be a slowed down version of skill. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So
Intentional, being mindful while you're doing
right.
it. Yeah.
So it could be many, I call it volume training of the same thing over and over. And you're adding steps to it and whatever, and that's the bulk of your early on stages of training. And then obviously, am I going ahead of the game right now?
You're good.
Okay, so then once those first few weeks are up, depending on your timeline, right, you're separating it into 3-4 different blocks. Then you're going to go. You're going to add some higher pace skill drills. As the summer goes on, it's going to look a little bit more like game like situation, right? So like the skills that I do right now, that we just started last week, is there's no goalies, 0 goalies on the ice, because that takes away from what they're actually trying to do. Like if I'm doing power skating, or I don't like the term power skating or stick handling or shooting, I don't need a goalie, because I need to tweak things and work on things, and it's not about scoring. It's about the mechanics of things. So as you get going, then all of a sudden there's going to be more passing, a little bit higher pace, the second phase, with a little bit of battle stuff, not too much. And then as you change that, it's going to be still high skill, but there's going to be more 2-on-2s, 1-on-1s, battles, and games, and then the end of the summer with very little skill, high paced game like situation and battle drills.
Yeah. So that's good. So on ice, there's kind of a frame for you, and then you have to focus on the things you need to focus on within that. So if it's skating, for example, that's that. So if I'm a kid now, what's a way to kind of benchmark that I'm getting better? So if I'm a weaker skater, and I'm saying, okay, I'm going to go do my camp once a week for the first 4 weeks of the summer. Like, what's a way that I can tell I'm getting better? Like, what's a way that I can see okay, I think I was here before and I can see that this is getting easier or whatever. Like, what's a way that I can actually gauge that this is working or whatever?
Yeah, well, you could do some time drills.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do that, but I honestly, I think it's a feel. I mean, you're going
Yeah.
to notice on the ice if you're separating yourself from somebody or if you're not. And to be honest with you, your skating is not. You're not going to improve your skating. I know that sounds totally ridiculous, but you're not going to be a faster. How do I say this? It's going to help you with the mechanics and all that kind of stuff is going to help you. Like, so let's say your first three steps are a little bit slower. Yes, doing the three steps on the ice, like quick starts and load and explodes, short area games is going to help you to a degree, but then it's going to, where you're really going to find the gains is in the gym.
Mhm.
Doing it in the gym. That's doing it in the gym or doing some kind of form of exercise.
Yep.
And then as a younger kid, you're getting stronger just because you're getting older as well. So it's a little harder to do.
Right.
But it's about mechanics, man. It's
Yeah.
about mechanics.
Well, and this is why I wanted to draw this distinction, because it's easy to benchmark things when you're in the gym because you have a weight or you have a time or you have a whatever. But when you're on the ice, it's not as easy. So that's exactly how I wanted you to answer that question, because
okay.
it's like you have to be paying attention.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to notice.
That's right.
Right. So
Yeah.
if you're noticing that the puck's just feeling lighter on your stick now, it's like, okay, that's an indicator that something's working.
Yeah.
Or if you can find that you can put the puck where you want it when you're shooting.
Yeah.
Or if you're finding that you're leading the pack now when you guys are doing the conditioning drills, or if you're finding that, the single leg inside edge work that you were doing before, now you're actually feeling like I can hold that push for a lot longer. Yeah. That's how you're going to measure your improvement on the ice, right? Because you don't have a weight or a time or whatever necessarily. Right. So that's why it's really important to have a brain, like we always say, and make sure that you're paying attention to that. Mm-hmm. And that's what leads into the last one of like being able to tweak. If you're not feeling any better after 3-4 weeks of doing whatever the work is you're doing, then something's not working. Yeah. Some part of your plan is not going according to plan. So that's where you need to check, okay, am I really focusing on what he's telling me in terms of the mechanics? Or am I making sure I'm recovering properly so I'm fresh enough to do the work properly when I'm on the ice? Like, those are the types of questions you can ask where you can make those tweaks and then kind of iterate to improve on the work that you're doing. So that's all what I want to say on the ice. I don't know if you had something else for on ice stuff.
No, good.
Good. So I was going to go to off ice stuff now. So off ice, this is probably the easiest thing to plan and to track, because you have like measurable numbers that you can work with. So, but it's the exact same thing as we talk about on the ice. So all of this stuff, like, you want to try to keep it in context of your improvement on the ice. Like, because remember why we're training. Like, you're training to be good in a game. Yep. You want to actually be good in the game. Yep. It's not about being able to squat the most or being able to bench the most or whatever. It's about improving on the ice. So when you find your holes that are on the ice, it's not going to be a skill thing, but maybe it's going to be more of like an energy system thing or a strength thing where you're lacking. So if you're finding that you're getting knocked off the puck really easily, well, that could be an indicator of overall strength or core strength, something like that. If you find you're getting tired a lot, that's an indicator for your conditioning. Yeah. If you find you're not fast enough to, separate yourself from guys or whatever, that's another thing where you're talking about speed and explosiveness to get away from guys. Yeah. So these are more general themes now that you're going to bring into the gym. So you use Charlie as an example, he's already a big, strong kid. That doesn't mean we don't work on strength, but that means we focus more of our energy on maybe the speed, explosiveness, separation type stuff that you want to work on the ice. So here, one example of how you can do that. So because this is exactly what I'm going to say to Charlie for working out this summer, I'm going to say when you're doing your reps, I actually don't really care that much about how much weight you use, because I already know that you're strong. I'm not super worried about force production out of you, but I want you to move that weight as fast as you can move it. Yep. So you're going to have your eccentric, and then I want you ripping up. Every rep you do this summer, I want it to be intentional as fast as possible coming out, whether it's a squat, whether it's a press, whether it's a pull, whatever it is. I want it to be fast. Move yourself fast out of each of those reps. Obviously, there's going to be times where we don't do that, but generally speaking, I'm going to have him focused on that, because his goal is that explosiveness, that separation speed, whatever, because he's another one of those guys where when he gets up to speed, he's moving. Oh yeah. But getting him up to speed, that's an area where we can improve. So for him, that's one thing that he could do. Yeah. If I take a guy like Seabass, maybe he's okay with that kind of stuff, but he gets knocked off the puck way more easily than Charlie, for example. So sea bass, we're going to be focusing on, we need to put some weight on you. We need to make you stronger. We need to make you more stable so you guys aren't bullying you when you're along the walls or whatever. So for him, now I'm a little bit more concerned about, okay, how much are we pushing here? How much weight can we actually get you to handle on this with good control? You know, I'm not as worried about that burst of speed. Again, it doesn't mean we're never going to work on that, but that's where the focus is going to change. And the other thing too is these guys are going to be doing the same program, the same workout program.
Same
in terms of what the exercises are in the format, but they're going to have different focus when they're doing their workouts, right? So that's one way that you need to think about that in terms of the gym. And then tracking your progress, super easy for gym stuff. Because if you need to be tracking your weights, you can track your weights. If you want to track your speed, you can track your speed in terms of the timing that you're doing stuff, right? So there's a lot of ways that you can make you can have measurements for the gym stuff. And this is, I made a post about this on Instagram. If anybody's interested in looking at that, I have a page like from my journal book, or you can call it a notebook if you don't like the word journal, of tracking my stuff for a day. So the things that I write down, how to track my weights, how to track my sets, how to make notes on how I felt about what I'm doing and all that kind of stuff. That's a really valuable tool in the gym, is having something to write down what you're doing. Because if you don't track using your weights on your working sets is the easiest example, because if you don't know how much weight you did on set one of your squats, next week when you come back to do squats again, you're going to have to figure out where to start again. Where if you have your book, you can go back and go, okay, last week I did that, so this week I'm going to start a little bit more and see if I can still get the same amount of reps or whatever. You know, so that's why it's really important to have a tracking mechanism.
Especially if you say, or you or whatever trainer says, okay, so we're going to go and use this week we're doing 80% of your 1 rep max. So if you don't even know what your 1 rep max is, then you're guessing, and you're becoming ineffective. Some trainers will do it for you, but you and I are both of the same belief that we want our players to actually think. So for us, writing everything down is actually not helping them. They need to show the interest to write their progress down, how they feel, what their weights are and stuff like that, so they can take a little bit of ownership. And also, so as they get older, they actually know how to work out and what that meant to them. Yeah,
you need to understand you. And that's what I say to them all the time. Like, my job is to provide you with a good training program and good workouts to do. Your job is to give a shit about your progress. You know, I want you guys to progress, but I have 50 guys that are working out in here. I'm not tracking all your stuff for you. So get your own book. And then if you have questions, you come to me with your book, and we can make adjustments and talk about it, because that's what my job is. But you need to track your own stuff. You know, so I make them do that, tracking their weights and all that kind of stuff. So that's the basic framework for off ice. You have anything else for training stuff?
No. But actually, I'm just going to add something. It's a side note. As we were talking about the explosiveness, I want players to kind of think something that's not the obvious. When people talk about the explosive skating, I think a lot of people are talking about the separation speed, straight line, first 3 steps, but that is true. But what I'm looking at also is that if you have really good first 3 steps, it will enable you to be a very effective penalty killer and just that short game stuff. So it's not necessarily quick feet so you can get down the ice quick. It's 10-foot game, 8-foot game,
direction
15,
change.
Direction change. So if you're, like most people will not be, if they make it to the NHL, are not going to be second liners. So these areas these are the ones that are going to make you money. Small area, getting on pucks and stuff like that. So penalty killing and stuff. So anyways, I just wanted to throw that in there because we're thinking about that.
And that's a really good point, because this is, I was going to talk about this a little later, but I'll talk about it now because you're kind of mentioning it there. Sometimes people will listen to this kind of stuff and it's like, man, like, you're taking it so serious, like this kind of stuff. It doesn't have to be that serious. It's like, actually, if you're talking about the difference being this much between you and the next guy, it actually is that serious, because the difference could be how good your sleep habits are. Because that makes you more fresh, more consistently, meaning more progress, because you are that much better in the area of sleep, which is like, who would think that is going to be a difference maker?
Number one medicine.
Yeah, right? So there's these little things, like, you're just trying to get little advantages because it is that difficult. You get up to the higher levels, everybody's awesome. So how are you getting your separation? And it's going to come in little stuff like this. Or how well can you keep track of your stuff to make sure you're improving on a regular basis, So that's a good point.
Can I just side note?
Yeah.
So Charlie's last game was in the Sioux on the road and they lost, so they're out of the playoffs. And like every year for the young guys, it's like the young guys are like want to win, and then going home is fine too. Like not really, but it's like going home is always nice. The older guys, so the overagers that there's no chance they can come back and play for the league. Charlie says I can't even look at them right now because they're it hit them. Like, you know, it's coming, but now there's nothing you can do about your game. So when people say you know, you shouldn't be so serious, it's like, well, depending on who.
Right.
If you're actually in the game and you're getting to the end of the road or you're almost there, and then you walk into that brick wall and there's nowhere else to go, you needed to be serious. So that's who we're talking to.
Right.
Because that day comes and it's like, wow. Yeah. So the reality is, maybe they could have done things better. Maybe they couldn't have. But if they left it all on the table and had all the information and actually applied everything that they could, sometimes you're just not a good enough hockey player. And it's not like they're not playing anywhere, but it's this part is over, and now there's uncertainty again where they have to get back on track, and they have to figure everything out to be whatever type of pro or university player they are. So, yeah. Anyway, sorry, man.
No, it's good because you could be that 1 degree of difference.
Yeah.
That's all you needed. You're right there knocking on the door, and you just missed. Right. You know, it's like these are that's who we're talking to. So that's it. Next, I want to go into nutrition stuff. So this is a tricky one too, because there's a fine line between like being a crazy person and doing things that are reasonable, and you don't want to make things more complicated than they need to be, but I don't think that they are. Like, this is my own bias. Like, I always think it's better to be on top of your shit and track your stuff and have an idea of what's going in your body. Some people don't think that. Some people think if you follow, you know, general principles that you'll be fine, and they both work. Like, some people can do either, and it works for them. I always err more on the side of like more specific tracking stuff because I'm the science guy and I like having the numbers and having the data and all that kind of stuff. But regardless, to some degree, you need to be on top of what your nutrition protocol is. So one thing I started doing with the kids is every Saturday I give them a little talk between our 2 workout groups about something off ice related, whether it's nutrition, recovery, whatever. So we've been doing nutrition for the last few weeks, and I'm just teaching them basics about like what are calories, macros, how much approximately you should be eating or looking to eat or whatever, just to give them some scope of what this information is. So what I would say about the nutrition stuff is, obviously we've talked about this a bunch before, but it's so important that you start to have a good diet, man. Like, it's just so important. And for a lot of these kids that they have aspirations to move on and grow and get bigger and stronger and faster, they all say that. Why? Because I asked them, like, before we do our talks, I'm like, why are you here? What's the point of being in the gym? Why are you here? Well, I want to get bigger. Well, I want to get stronger. Well, I want to get faster. It's like, okay, you know how to do that?
Look better.
Yeah, right?
That's what everyone does.
Yeah, everyone says that, right? It's like, do you know how to do that? It's like, you could spend as many hours as you want in this gym. Yeah. You're not going to get bigger if you don't eat enough to get bigger. Yeah. You know, and I always give them the caveat that for the group that I'm talking to, most of them are going through puberty. So by default, they're going to get some growth just because they got the horse hormones going through them right now. But for somebody like me, puberty's over. So if I want to get bigger,
imagine if it wasn't.
Oh, imagine that. I got a Gandalf beard coming in now. But if I want to get bigger, it's almost entirely nutrition. Yep. So if I want to put on weight, it's nutrition. If I want to lose weight, it's nutrition. It's not. I don't get any default gains anymore. Yeah. You know. Yeah. So for these guys, I'm trying to get them into that information where it's like, okay, how do I actually achieve the goal that I want? So again, it all plays into the same theme for yourself. So if you're saying, okay, I need to get faster. Okay, there's something you're going to do on the ice that you're going to focus on. There's something you're going to do off the ice that you're going to focus on. There's something you're going to do in the kitchen that you're going to focus on. You know, if I want to get faster,
and you're going to sleep to make sure that you can.
Well, yeah, we're going to get into that. Yeah. So if your goal is, okay, I need to get stronger, I need to get bigger because I'm getting knocked off the puck easily. Yeah. Okay. So you have your on ice plan, you have your off ice plan. You have to have your plan in the kitchen, man. Yeah. You're eating a lot in the day. Yeah. So what I say to most of the guys, without getting too specific, is make sure you're prioritizing protein at every meal, and then just make sure you eat a lot. That's it. Make sure you eat a lot. Make sure you prioritize protein at every meal. And then we're trying to keep our diet pretty clean. We're supposed to be athletes because you need the nutrients, man. You need the nutrients to grow. You need the nutrients to repair, especially when you're constantly kicking the shit out of yourself. You have your workout, you have your skate, whatever you have to do in the day. Like there's a lot of stuff going on, especially like later in the summer when they're going to be here for 7 hours in the day, and they got their killer workout, they got their killer skate on the ice. You have to be able to replace what you're taking out of yourself, you know? So that means you have to have quality food. You just have to. There's no choice, there's no debate. There's none of that. It's you have to have good food. The majority of your diet has to be good food, and you have to prioritize protein. So those are the two things that you can do to start your plan. And then if you want to get into more specifics about things to track and all that kind of stuff, there's ways you can do that too. But we'll save that for another episode, or you can listen to some of our older episodes about nutrition stuff. So that's all I'll say about that.
So like you said, it's not rocket science, but it is. Nutrition is a very difficult thing to master, and then
it's as complicated as you make it, and because you can make it infinitely complicated, or you can keep it as bare bones, right? You have either way you can go with it. Sorry.
Yeah. So, like in the course that I took from precision nutrition, it's like people always try to complicate it, but if you can, he calls it 3 levels of eating: level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 is what, if you can do that 90% of the time, you will be as lean and as in good a shape as you possibly could, like as far as nutrition goes. Level 2 is where when people start doing something and they want to get gains, they think they have to get to a level 2 or a level 3 level eater, which is actually not maintainable unless you're super, super, super disciplined. But that would be like in season all the time. Level 2 eating would be like, this is where you add in I'm saying it like kind of weird, but you're getting into like the supplements are making a difference. They're actually making a difference though.
Right.
They're actually making a difference. And then level 3 would be like, and you're always maintaining a 6-pack. And then level 3 would be like your bodybuilding type of thing, but it's not maintainable.
Yeah.
It's not. You'll go nuts.
That's like where your job is that.
Right. Yeah. So when people like, like you said, you have pushback, sometimes you got to be so serious. It's like, well, this level 1 eating is just your basic, but it's good for all athletes,
all humans,
until you get to like levels where they can actually understand your blood types and say, okay, if you had more of this, that's where it starts to get complicated. But what it is you're eating, like you said, protein, like quality protein, drinking your water, having your veggies, having the right fruits, having the right starches, all that stuff. It's just basic eating. You're not eating a whole bunch of junk food 90% of the time. You know how many people do that? People that are even dialed in, very small percentage do it for like 90% of the time. It's very hard because you have an environment that wins a lot of the times, all these different things, emotions, all this kind of stuff. So that's very hard. So maintaining level 1 eating, being a good level 1 eater is important. And it's also important that, like, what I loved is that when you do this with the kids, and this what we do all the time, is we try to educate them on many, many things. Because if I show someone 10 things, they might keep one. That one might spin off and get it back to the 10 that we taught anyways. Right. So it's important. And for anyone that said, like you said earlier, like you guys are so serious about it. Well, the kids are serious. Sorry, man. If you don't like how serious we are, don't watch this. I'm fine with it. And that's what I say to customers. If you don't like a serious training session where you get results, just don't come. I don't care.
Yeah.
So if you don't like it, just don't watch. Not a big deal. Yeah. You're not affecting my life.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can be less serious somewhere else. I don't care. So this is for people that want to be players. You want to help your kids. I'm sorry. Yeah. But so anyways, that's level 1. If you can do that, it's fantastic. And it's great for the kids to understand it, because if they do go to junior or whatever, they can actually make decisions. They understand, like some of Charlie's players and themselves, like they have their meals. They know not to snack here or there, and they're smart about things. Mm-hmm. It's wonderful to see. The other thing I wanted to say about nutrition is, for all hockey players, I would say, not just junior and pro, is the season beats you down. It beats you down. So it's actually not possible. You can eat. You can eat healthy and all that kind of stuff. But what happens is you're on the road a lot. You're so busy. You're so active that your eating does go sideways a little bit. It has to, because after if you're on the road and the team is giving you, I don't know, burgers and fries, that's what you're getting. You have no choice unless you pack your own meals all the time, but it becomes like, now you're getting weird anyways. You need calories, right? So anyways, in the season, it's much, much harder. So that's why once you get back and reset, you get back on track so that you can build that temple back up to get all the proper nutrients and build the muscle and all that kind of stuff, so that this is the time where you're doing that. So
Right.
is that
That's good. That's good because the other point I was going to make, you touched on a bunch there, but I'll just go back to two things. The last one you were talking about there is I'm going to talk about in terms of stress. So
Yeah.
when you're in the season, you're stressed out, man. Like you're tired, your body's beat down, you don't have enough time to recover. It doesn't matter how much time you're on the ice every day, you don't have time to recover.
Yeah.
Right? You can't work out every day.
plus school?
Well, you can't work out every day
Right.
and still recover.
Right.
Yet you work out every day.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's
right.
like you're going to be in a net negative situation anyways, and you don't want food to become another stressor where you're like so crazy about making sure everything is to a T. Some people do that without stress. Like, so for me, it's not incredibly stress, and I wouldn't even say I'm a 90% on with my food all the time, because on the weekends I at least have 2 meals a week where I'm not 100% dialed in. So right there, we're at 80% now, right? So I wouldn't even say I'm a 90%er, but some people they don't find it stressful. Like I'm more towards that end where I can plan all my meals, I can have everything macroed out and marked and measured and all that kind of stuff, and I don't find it stressful. I actually find it more stressful to not have it set up, right?
So do I. Yeah.
So that's just for me. But when you're someone who's in the season constantly getting a beat down, you don't want to add another stressor into your life of, oh, I can't eat this because that's not a good point, either, right? You don't want to add another stress to the system. So you can be a little more lax. And this is what I always say to the kids is once you get I never tell them that part. I never tell them that part until they have their base.
Yeah.
Because I'm not trying to give you permission to eat like an asshole because they don't even know what their base is yet. I had this conversation with a kid last year because he was trying to put on weight, and he's like, man, like I can't put on weight. Like I'm measuring the calories. I'm trying to make sure I'm eating, and it's so hard. And like I'm doing the shakes and trying to get, and I'm like, okay, now we can talk about adding in a little bit of this and that because you're working to keep the base. You understand the base part. Now you can add in the extra more high calorie dense foods that maybe aren't the best thing you could ever eat. Yeah. Because you need it.
Your body's saying, right? This ain't enough.
It's not enough. You can't eat enough whole food to do that. Your hormones won't allow it. Like they're just saying we're done, man. Yeah. Like we're done. So this is where you can get the more dense sources. But I never lead with that. That's always like the tail end of the information distribution that I give to them, because a lot of them have so much room for improvement in the base of their diet. Yeah. And this goes to my second point where you mentioned supplements. I get kids asking me all the time, should I take creatine? Should I take a mass gainer? Should I take that? It's like, you should make sure your diet's good first, is what you should do. Yeah. Do you have protein at every meal? No? Well, then you're going to go spend $95 a month on a mass gainer when you don't even have protein at every meal.
You don't have real food.
Right? You don't have the real food yet. So there's way more room to improve as your base. Like your supplements are supplements. They're not the base.
That's right.
So for kids at the very least, kids that are not as advanced, get your base diet in order, right? If you're not sure what that means, we have episodes we talked about that before, but in general, it's get the protein at every meal, try to eat whole foods as much as you can, and make sure you're eating a lot. If your goal is to get stronger, faster, bigger, which most kids are, that's your template right there. And then you can get more specific after that with tracking calories and all that kind of stuff. And the last thing I'll say with the nutrition thing is a good idea is to start measuring what your weight is. So what I say with the kids when I give them the calorie conversation, a lot of them are starting to keep an eye on it and all this kind of stuff. I said, get your weight in the morning, right when you wake up. So get up, do a number 1 or number 2, whatever you got to do, and then get your weight right in the morning before you eat anything.
Yeah, it's consistent.
That'll be the most consistent measure of the day. If you weigh yourself during the day, you sweat more that day, you ate more that day, you drank more that day, then there's more fluctuation. In the morning, it'll be you just had 8 hours of fasting, to use a term. Yeah. So that's going to be your most consistent result. And then you can see over time whether or not your nutrition protocol is working. This is a way to measure, right? If you don't want to track and use MyFitnessPal or whatever, you can just use your weight. So it's like, okay, my goal is to put on 10 pounds this off season. That's a reasonable goal for a lot of kids. Mm-hmm. If 4 weeks go by and you haven't moved, it's like, okay, that's an indicator. Like we got to tweak something here. Yeah. Or you're losing, or you're gaining too fast. Yeah. If 4 weeks goes by and you're up 4 pounds, 5 pounds, it's like, okay, that's kind of quick. Like maybe you're eating it a bit too much, or you have too much junk in the diet or whatever it is. Yeah. So that's a good measurement strategy for the nutrition thing. But again, it doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't have to be like super, and that I did that. Like I got so crazy about the scale weight, and they don't even, kids don't understand like the fluctuation day to day just because of water and stuff like that. So you don't have to be crazy about it, but that's a good way to track the nutrition thing. So that's all I got on that, unless you have any other nutrition.
No.
Good. So then last one is recovery. And this kind of branches on that stress point that I just made.
Yeah.
You need to de-stress. So what you don't want to do in the off season is recreate the stress of in season. So you're working on, when you're in the off season, you're working on getting bigger, faster, stronger, better, whatever.
Yeah.
And same point you made earlier when you're talking about skating improvement. It's not a beat down. It's not supposed to be a beat down.
Yeah.
Your beat down is while you're doing your work. And then outside of that, it's not a beat down.
Yeah.
It's a recovery.
Yeah.
So this means sleep. Nutrition plays into recovery, but this means sleep. And then there's other recovery things that you should be doing to help sustain your body and keep yourself strong, whether it's like mobility stuff or different recovery modalities. Like, you don't have to do this, but stuff like ice bath and all that kind of shit, or even just the mental game that you're talking about, getting yourself to like calm down, get out of your own head, de-stress yourself mentally. So some of the things that are good, first of all, is like sleep hygiene. So making sure like when it's sleeping time, it's sleeping time, and this plays into the discipline that is required when you're trying to be an athlete. A lot of guys, you can work hard when you're on the ice, you can work hard when you're in the gym, but when you're away from the gym and it's not the sweat kind of work hard, it's still hard work, like trying to be disciplined enough to go to bed on time and trying to make sure that your bed habits and your bedtime routine is just as good as your pre-game routine and gym routine and whatever. That's a part of it, So it's making sure that you're going to, when it's bedtime, it's bedtime. It's not scroll through TikTok time. It's not watch TV until 2 a.m. or play video games till 2 a.m. time. It's like, these are things that actually make the difference. And the sleep is probably the most untapped area of improvement for athletes that, like, I never, and even in university, when it's like we're talking about adults, I never even paid attention to sleep. Like, I thought it was fine to just keep getting up at 5 a.m. to go do my workout and go to school all day and then go to practice and work out again and all that kind of stuff. I never once prioritized it, and that is where you get the gains. That is the legit. So I listened to this guy, Andrew Huberman. He's a Stanford professor, and he has an awesome podcast where he talks about all this kind of stuff. And he had a tweet one day. He was talking about what the best supplement, I guess, is for improving your testosterone, improving your recovery, improving all these metrics, whatever.
All health.
Sleep is number one. Yeah. It's more than anabolic steroids. Yeah. It's more than all of that kind of stuff. That was
like every time we've had, like on a couple episodes, we've had strength trainers from Edmonton, San Jose. They both said the same thing. We all say the same thing.
Yeah. It's
hard to understand.
It's so hard, especially because the culture is not one that values or prioritizes sleep, but you need to value and prioritize the sleep. So in terms of the measurement for it, like for me, we use the Whoop strap, which it's not perfect, but it's a good data.
Keeps you thinking.
Keeps you accountable, keeps you thinking about it.
You look at it every day.
Right? But get yourself a good routine. And this is how you can measure your sleep progress. You wake up in the morning, and this was one of the things I have top of the page for that post I made on Instagram about like tracking your stuff, is right in the morning, notes and gratitude. Those that are number 1 and 2. Yeah. How did I sleep? How did I feel when I went to bed? How do I feel this morning? Do I feel refreshed? Do I feel like I'm groggy? Do I feel whatever? And that's a way that you can track it if you don't have a device or something where you have a number to look at. And it's not like the devices are perfect, but it's something to look at.
Yeah.
So very important that you do that. Very important that you get into like some kind of mental training routine as part of your recovery where you can de-stress, get out of your own head. Don't get in the endless loop of TikTok, Instagram, social media, staring at your phone this close to your face all night. Like it's very low hanging fruit that you can try to work on. So the one strategy, because I know the phone is a big problem with sleeping, is put it on the other side of your room, man.
Yeah.
Well, I need it for my alarm. Yeah. Plug it in, put it on the other side of the room. Yeah. Your alarm will ring in the morning and wake you up. Yeah. So keep it out of because you can get in the loop, man. 45 minutes will go by where you're just flipping through. Easy, right?
Of stuff that's sucking the brain right out of you.
Yeah, and then you're wound up, you're stimulated going into when you're supposed to be going to sleep, So the sleep thing is huge. There's other things around that, but sleep is number 1, and that's all I'll say on that one.
I'll just add to that is I know it's not a topic that people really pay attention to, really, but I go to something I say all the time is success leaves clues. And if you were to look or listen to or know people that were successful, especially in what you do, which is hockey for us, you're going to realize that sleep is not something that's taken lightly. So whether you believe in it or not, like, fortunately, my son had me and you to talk to him about sleep and stuff, which when I spoke to him, it's just, I'm being dad. When I heard you talk about it, it's like, okay, maybe it's actually something, but you're still just Eric and you're my dad's bud. And then when he hears Zach Cassian talking about it, it's like, oh, sleep is important. What time do you go to bed? 9 latest. 9 o'clock. So okay. Dalton Prout going to bed at 8:30, 9:30. Like 10 o'clock is late. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, maybe it does make something. The more he was around people, he's realized that, oh, success leaves clues. You have to go to bed and get your sleep, but they would explain why. Not everybody has that option around them, but it's just critical. You have to trust us. If you're a player, if you're a parent right now, you've got to send out those coaching cues on how sleep is actually very important. The successful people do it. Now, you're gonna get one of your guys.
Can I hop in on this?
Yeah.
Ready? Because this is what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Tyler Seguin stays out partying until 3 a.m. and he plays great.
That's right.
Hey, guess what? You're not Tyler Seguin.
Yeah, yeah, and he does. Good for him.
Yeah,
and that's what I was just gonna say. Is there are guys that they don't give a rip about their conditioning, and they're just the guy that they can do it. But Sidney Crosby doesn't.
Yeah, nobody talks about that example.
Right. So like, there's guys that'll go after the game and they go straight to the drinking beers and not giving a rip, and they can perform to a certain extent. And that's not what we're talking about, because you're probably not that guy. We're talking about guys that actually, if you want to have success, it is the way it is. They do take a little bit of time off, like we said earlier. They work out strategically, or they have someone strategically plan it out, and then when it comes down to recovery, their nutrition and recovery, they eat as well as they can, and they pick their spots, obviously, for certain things, and then they sleep. They have to sleep, and it's such a hard thing to understand, especially as a youth. But you have to sleep. You have to sleep to perform. Yep. That's my point, is success leaves clues. The more that you start sniffing around and looking around and poking through and seeing who does what, and just look at articles and listen to interviews. Like, that's a real simple thing, right? If you actually start listening to interviews with players, like off-season stuff, they'll talk about it. And we had a good night's sleep, lacked sleep last week. We didn't get a lot of sleep. And like, why do they say that? It's because it's actually important. Yep. Right. A good night's sleep. So
anyways. Yeah, for sure. So that's what I had in terms of like kind of the framework of the plan, and you can get as specific as you want within each of those buckets, but that's the base. You got the four areas. You got on ice, off ice, nutrition, recovery. If you want to call it mental stuff outside of that, you can call it that. That's fine. But my general tip, and then I'll throw it over to you to go over your stuff, is start slow, meaning you don't have to do everything that we just said, but do something. You know, pick one thing to do, and to your point, you know, you do one thing, it'll lead to the next thing, it'll lead to the next thing. You don't have to do everything at once right off the hop, especially if it's your first time hearing information about how to make a plan for yourself. But just pick these four areas and do one thing better in each of those areas, and you're starting. Now you're starting. You know, so that's what I say on that, and that's all that I got.
Yeah, then just I don't really have much more to add. It's been very good, but what I would say was similar to what you said is, there's attitudes out there when you're doing something, and I think it's very common. It's all or nothing, right? So people look at it, and in the off season, right? And this is what we're in the off season. We're going into the off season, and what I would suggest is you take at least 2 weeks to just chill. Whenever that 2 weeks is, when all your tryouts are done, when your season's over, whatever. So junior's different than minor hockey, pro's different than minor hockey, but you take those at least 2 weeks to just actively rest. Like that. So when we say don't do anything, it doesn't mean don't do anything at all. Yeah. Sitting eating Doritos is not the healthiest thing under any circumstance. But because you want your body to move and relax in different ways. So it could be just simply walking. It could be stretching. It could be mobility work. It could be riding a bike, playing tennis, whatever it is. Like you're moving a little bit. You want to always move the engine a little bit. But reflect on what you're going to be doing. And the all or nothing thing is, when you are reflecting and you're setting goals, it's not, you don't have to do every single thing perfectly all the time. So for example, when we talk about eating, because I'm the hardest on myself when it comes to food, It's
Same.
you know, and I see myself doing it all the time. It's like good, 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 and then when I slip a little, then I want to go nuts for the whole day. It's like I blew it. We didn't have to blow it. You could have just had one bad, like one negative. It's not. Then it becomes not negative. You just have fries with a burger, let's say.
Yeah.
It's like that's not the end of the world. Or you had a beer with at dinner. It's not the end of the world. Doesn't mean you're off track. Just reset. So it's not all or nothing. It doesn't mean you have to eat perfectly, work out perfectly, sleep perfectly, all that stuff. It's take steps as you said, and and you're going to be fine. It's progress is the most important thing. It's not being perfect. It's your intention and your progress. So
That's an excellent point, Coach Andy. I want to touch on I want to stay on that for a sec. The setbacks thing, because I didn't even think about mentioning that. That's a really good point. So one example I gave, I had one of the kids asking me the other day. He he is jacked, and he's talking to me about getting bigger, stronger, whatever. And he came in and said, "Hey, Coach, I was weighing myself every morning for the last few days, and I'm up like 4 pounds, like in the last few days, whatever." And I was like, "Oh yeah." It's like, "Okay." He's like, "Okay, was that too fast? Like, am I going too fast?" I'm like, "Well, if 2 days ago you weighed 142 pounds and today you weigh 146 pounds, you didn't actually put on 2 pounds of weight,
you did
right?"
put 2 pounds of muscle on.
Right. So you didn't put what you probably
Yeah.
did is you got more water, maybe you had more carbs and you're
Yeah.
holding more water, whatever. So
Yeah.
I'm explaining to him that you didn't put on 2 pounds of weight. So a pound is 3,500 calories. So that means to put on 4 pounds, you would need to eat 3,500 times 4 calories over what you burn,
Yeah.
which is very difficult to do in 2 days.
Yeah.
So what I said to him was, but point of my story is that I was explaining that progress does not look like a straight line.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When you zoom out,
Yeah.
very far, it'll look like a straight line. If you do a line of best fit that everyone learned in math class,
Yeah.
you'll
Except
see,
for me.
yeah, except for you, you'll see a straight line. But when you zoom in on any one period of time, it looks like a crazy zigzag.
Yeah.
There's highs and lows and deviations, but it's over time you're trending in the right direction. So to your point about the setbacks, whether it's with food, whether it's with your workout, if you didn't progress this week or you felt worse than you did last week or whatever it is, it's not the end of the world that you had a brownie. It's not the end of the world that you had whatever thing was. So a lot of people, if you're the type of people like we are, where you get really hard on yourself about, being as perfect as possible, it'd be a really good strategy to not get in the habit of beating the shit out of yourself because you had a fry with dinner. Because man, did I do that for a long time. And then you get one thing, like we had Easter 2 weekends ago, and it was like a derail event because it's the family's over and we're eating like pigs for 2 days and whatever. But it's that the one day or the 2 days that are bad. It's not the end of the world, Like I told you yesterday, I woke up 7 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
Am I 7 pounds heavier?
Turkey legs hanging out of your ear.
Yeah, right. It's like, am I actually 7 pounds heavier? It's like, no, because I understand now that in 2 days I'm gonna flush it off and I'll be back to what I was at. You know. But if you let that kind of stuff get in your head, it can put you in a real negative mindset about your off season and your training and whatever, and it can be hard to bounce back from. So that's a really good point. Like, don't let yourself get into that mindset of it's the end of the world if you mess something up. It's not about perfection; it's about progress over time, right?
Yeah. Well, and so last thing for me then, since you went on that tangent about long term, is so even when you're playing now, okay, let's get right back into hockey. So even when you're playing, not one game, not one shift, not 1 month, and actually not 1 year is going to determine where you're going to be. It's that trend again. And if we went game by game, then your emotions would go straight up to straight down faster than you can shake a stick. Is that a saying? Yeah. Okay. Right? So just getting drafted, it was like, right? So you get drafted high. Oh, wow. Everything. And this is prom party now, right? The coach and the GM and everybody, the fans, everybody around you think you're the greatest thing in the world right now. Wow, this is going to be awesome. Everyone's telling you we have our expectations. You're going to do great. And when you get there, you got to perform. And now you got a different set of just emotions itself start to go, okay, this is real. This is different. This guy's big. This is a big arena. There's lots of fans. Blah, 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 blah. And the coach is not as nice. He doesn't tell me he loves me as much anymore. right? Because before you get there, you're the best thing ever, but now it's like now you're mine. Different world now. But anyways, so you still have good intentions, right? You're gonna, all of a sudden you start missing some shifts, and you're going, this sucks. If in the moment, it absolutely sucks. But in the day, what did you get out of it? In the week, what did you get out of it? You practiced hard still. You worked out hard still with better, bigger players. You played at another level. At the end of the week, you're a better hockey player. At the end of that week, you should be. And then you get scratched a game just because, no reason, just because. And that emotion, if you were to determine your future on that, then it's not going very well. And that happens over and over throughout the year. You score a goal, get in a fight, get a couple of assists, this, and the coach goes, okay, well, just staple your ass to the bench. And you go, why? So you went from high to low like in a matter of one game. And it's a matter of just being steady Eddie and doing the things the right way. The track is certainly not going the opposite way. But if you went everyday emotion, it ain't happening. But you look at the trend, it's like, where are we going to be in 5 years, man? Don't worry about where you're going to be in March 24th or November 11th. Where are we going to be in 5 years? Because even getting into the league, your game has to change, or you have to adapt to the league, or you might have to play a role. So
yeah, that's why you don't chase the day to day. That's the moral of the story there, right? It's not about today. It's not about this week, this month. It's about it's zooming out and all of it combined together. Which way were you going? And that's the biggest thing to keep in mind with any of this stuff. So through the this off season, like, make sure you keep that stuff in mind. And if you've never made a plan before, you have to know before going into it that it's not going to go the way you plan. It never does. There's always something that changes. There's always something that's different than you thought it would be. There's always some new thing that comes up that either gets in the way or just is a good thing but changes the path anyways. So there's all these kinds of things that you're going to have to deal with all the time. So make sure you're not so focused on today and tomorrow and the next day. Make sure you're just focused on the process. Again, like we talk about, focus on the process. Make sure you're trending in the right direction over time, and then you'll be able to look back afterwards and judge whether you did well or not. And that's why we said at the start, when you're making this plan, you're reflecting on the whole year before. You're not reflecting on January. You're reflecting on everything together. What happened? How did I do? And all that kind of stuff, And so it's very important to have that mindset going into it, because otherwise you can get in that negative spiral of thinking it's the end of the world, whatever, and it's not. You have a lot of time. Time is fast and slow, as you say. So I think that's good. I'm good to end it there. Do you have anything else?
No, I'm good.
Leave off on?
Good.
Okay, sweet. Ciao.